Section: Introduction. In this section, we introduce our focus on role-playing language models designed for entertainment. These models take on specific characters and are expected to engage users while staying true to their roles. While there are other uses for these models, we concentrate on entertainment in this paper. We present a new benchmark to evaluate these role-playing models, believing that direct interaction is the best way to measure their conversational skills. However, we recognize that people often don't have the time to interact with new models, and many existing benchmarks only assess single-turn interactions, which are becoming less reliable due to data contamination. To tackle these issues, we propose a method where language models simulate users in role-playing conversations, allowing us to automatically evaluate the dialogues produced. Our approach includes three main components: a player model that embodies a character, an interrogator model that mimics user behavior, and a judge model that assesses the quality of the conversation. Our contributions include a dynamic, multi-turn benchmark for evaluating the role-playing abilities of language models, a multi-model evaluation system to reduce individual model biases, validation of our benchmark through correlation with manual annotations. We provide all results, prompts, and scripts online, including leaderboards and example scores for both English and Russian languages. In the related work section, we discuss automatic evaluation methods that use strong language models instead of humans, such as Alpaca Eval and EQ Bench. However, these benchmarks often rely on a single model as a judge, which can introduce biases. We also note that most existing benchmarks are single-turn, which doesn't reflect real-world usage. While there are some multi-turn benchmarks, they focus on specific capabilities and differ from how humans typically evaluate language models. Data contamination is another significant issue for static benchmarks, as test data can leak into the pre-training datasets of language models. This contamination can happen unintentionally, making it hard to avoid. We suggest that closing benchmarks entirely is not practical, and instead, we propose regularly updating or dynamically generating test data. We also highlight the role-play capabilities of language models, with various commercial and academic efforts to create systems that utilize these abilities. Existing static benchmarks for role-playing, like Echo and Persona Gym, have similarities to our work, but we focus on single-point evaluations rather than side-by-side comparisons. In our methodology, we define three main roles: player, interrogator, and judge, inspired by the Turing test but adapted for our needs. The player takes on a character role, the interrogator simulates user behavior, and the judge evaluates responses based on set criteria. We implement role assignments through a mix of system and user prompts, intentionally creating an asymmetrical setup that reflects typical use cases. However, we acknowledge that symmetrical setups could be beneficial in other contexts. Section Summary. In this section, we introduce our focus on role-playing language models for entertainment, proposing a novel multi-turn benchmark for evaluating their conversational abilities through automated interactions. Our methodology involves three roles: player, interrogator, and judge, designed to assess dialogue quality while addressing issues like data contamination and model biases. Section: Judge. In this section, we describe our evaluation process for the model's performance. We use a single-point scoring system without reference examples or pairs. Our evaluation criteria include character consistency, where the player's responses must align with their assigned character; entertainment value, which measures how engaging the responses are; and language fluency, ensuring the player uses high-quality, error-free language. We also check if the player refused to answer and prompt the model to explain its scoring with quotes from the conversation. Each turn in the conversation receives a score. In version 1, we combine the roles of interrogator and judge. This entity evaluates the player's latest response based on their character card, situational context, and evaluation criteria, generating the next user utterance. We chose the Claude 3.5 Sonnet model for this role, believing it would perform well in both creative writing and roleplay. In version 2, we separated the roles of interrogator and judge to address limitations of the first version. This separation helps with realistic user emulation, cost optimization, and tailored decoding strategies. We also recognized the need for a multi-model evaluation system, averaging scores from different judge models. For this, we used Claude 3.5 Sonnet and GPT-4o as our top models, with GPT-4o Mini serving as the interrogator due to its cost-effectiveness. We switched to a 5-point Likert scale to align with human annotations. To ensure our judges correlated well with human evaluations, we created 64 conversations for each of the 16 language models in Russian and sampled 250 for English and 265 for Russian, manually annotating them. We computed the Spearman correlation between manual and automatic annotations, using rank correlation due to differing scales. We then calculated automatic metrics for various models, including proprietary and open language models like Claude, GPT-4o, and Llama 3.1. We reported averages for each metric, the ratio of conversations with refusals, and overall averages. Each model was evaluated using 64 conversations across 8 characters and situations, keeping costs under 3 per model. The judge provided annotations for every turn, totaling 288 annotations. We aimed for diverse scenarios from various sources, including games, TV shows, movies, books, and anime. To address verbosity bias, we applied a length penalty, normalizing scores for models with longer player messages. Our results showed that the Spearman correlation for different versions of automatic judges was generally above 0.3, except for language fluency in English, which was affected by the annotator's non-native status and the high performance of most models. In contrast, models struggled more with Russian, showing stronger correlations. After averaging scores from the 2 models, we found a correlation above 0.64 for both languages, supporting our multi-model approach. The best performing model was Claude 3.5 Sonnet, while Llama 3.170b excelled in English and Gemma 2 Ataraxy 9b in Russian, the latter also ranking first in the creative writing benchmark for English.